Now, we've had 10 beautiful sessions talking about the technologies of consciousness, talking about the fact that we humans have a very special kind of consciousness. It's unique in the universe. And what we're really talking about is how should we be using this gift? It is truly an evolutionary gift that we have. The Yaqui masters in central Mexico say that we humans are perceivers. They're very wise about who we are and what we're doing here. And they say the problem that we have in these ages that we know that we have in recorded history is that we're taught what to perceive. And you can feel this in your family, in your communities. Some of the things that we're taught are wonderful things, and other things that we're taught might be limiting us. So our job now is to really investigate not just the outer world, not to just send spaceships to far planets, but to investigate the world inside us. We as human beings are now creating things that go far beyond what biology would do on its own. So we're actually participating in creation in a way that has never been seen before, in any way that we could measure or record or discover on this planet, and perhaps in the universe. So we not only need to understand that we are perceivers, but we need to learn to be aware. One of the things that we do in our actions, whatever we create in the world, we actually create meaning. We create meaning. If you go from one community to another, if you were to travel across the United States, for instance, you'll find people living in different regions who value different things. Perhaps their industries are different, or perhaps their history from their lineage, their biological lineage is different. So you'll find different family values. If you go from one business to another, you'll find different meaning and different value in businesses. And you'll find the same in different kinds of education, all the different ways that we live. We actually create meaning. And where we feel meaning, see, meaning is a felt sense. We have to experience it. And where we feel meaning or experience meaning, we perceive value. And whatever we value, we choose. So we look at the world today and we can see that there are a lot of problems in the world. We can say there are a lot of good things going on in the world, but people are making choices. And the way that we have to look at how we make choices now, we have large government organizations, we have processes for our social structures, and a lot of times people will make individual choices, but then on a collective scale, they see their choices are not the ones that the majority makes. So we have a very interesting situation in our culture these days. We have a lot of change going on. We have a lot of new ideas coming up, but we don't yet have that collectivity that will help us rise good choices and perhaps with more variety and diversity in what can be chosen and manifested. We're still a little bit too much in that one linear track. So yes, we are perceivers, but what we're suggesting in this course, in these materials, is that we can perceive and be aware at a much grander scale with many more dimensions and many more avenues, perhaps all manifesting at once to make life much richer. So let's review the organizing principles. We started with the core principle, which is Pacha, this beautiful word from the Quechua language in the Andes. It's spelled P-A-C-H-A, and Pacha essentially means the now. It's a concept that you'll find in indigenous cultures, in contemplative traditions around the world. It means being present, being here fully now. Present, knowing who you are and what you stand for, and yet connected, not isolated in your choice. Not isolated, but connected and yet strongly individual. And it means that all of the knowledge that you have from living your life and doing your work in the world and loving your family and friends, all of that knowledge is with you. It doesn't lie behind you. You don't have to drag it forward. You have become it. It also means that anything that you see, anything you vision for the future is actually here right now. It might be sitting as energetic potential, but it's here. It's not far away. It's not that carrot on a stick that we've learned to live with on our linear path in linear awareness. It's here now. Many elders and many indigenous cultures will tell you that they understand it's impossible to imagine something that doesn't actually exist. And we have so many things that we need to recraft: our relationship to the environment, our relationship one culture to the next, and so many beautiful ideas, wonderful ideas, things to create to make life better. It's actually here. It's not as hard as we make it when we look only down one path. So organizing our consciousness by Pacha is the very first practice. We gave you some practices for relaxing your nervous system and quieting your mind. I gave you some practices for simply awakening your senses. If you just went out into nature and spent time in nature for an hour a day, not thinking about yourself, just experiencing your environment, if you could do that for an hour a day for a month, you would be a different person. You would be sensing, you would be connected, you would have feeling inside you. And you know the longing that so many people in our culture have. We're filled with longing. We're looking for something. And we end up feeling something's missing. So we look for a missing piece. But truly, what we're longing for is to wake up. We have inside us this incredible capacity for being awake and aware and active and creative. And all we have to do is wake up our sensing capacity, and that longing and emptiness starts to disappear. We find out that we really belong on the planet. We belong with one another. We belong in nature. So this one principle, Pacha, organizing yourself by the now, imagining that now and everything around you is literally everything. All your knowledge, all your possibility, everything that's occurring, that little practice, even if you did it indoors, that would change you. If you try that for half a minute, several times a day, for a week, try it out and see. You'll be sensing more and knowing more. You'll be more fluid in life. So Pacha, this one organizing principle, this is really how consciousness works. If we walk into the human body and into the brain, there are so many time frames going on, so many systems in our body that are working on one time schedule. Another system in our body works on a completely different time schedule. Some things are rapid fire at the speed of light, and other things take longer to go through their cycles. And your brain works the same way, your body works this way. So time and timelines and deadlines, this way we live with our day timers, there's only one kind of minute or hour, is such a limiting view of the world. And we begin to put meaning onto this linear time, and we miss the possibility of working in multiple dimensions, having something roll through a few weeks of our life while we are rapid fire doing other things, and taking that as a beautiful, correct way to accomplish things in life. When we reduce everything to one line, A to B to C to D, we're limiting our possibilities. We're limiting our joy. We're limiting our abundance. So Pacha opens up so many things, this one core organizing principle of consciousness. You begin to experience, practicing the now, you begin to experience how you're actually designed to be alive and to thrive. And it's very important to know that we're designed for thriving. We live in a world where economies are stretched and people are stressed, and we forget. We live just at the edge of surviving. Can I make it through this year? Will the company be okay by next year? Is the family going to survive this or that? And biologically, we are designed to fill ourselves with energy and use that to reach out into the world and do successful things. And by successful, it means having enough to be happy and well fed and well sheltered and well connected, and most important, creative, contributing. And practicing organizing your awareness by Pacha will give you a taste of this. So Pacha is the first principle. And I mentioned in one of the lessons that the organizing principles are like a big net. They're all connected. So if you touch one, the others are actually all there. And the first one we notice when we organize ourselves by the now, we notice that we're actually aware of everything around us with no judgment. The ego structure is offline. It's resting someplace finally. And you can be aware of your surroundings. You can be aware of energies between people. You can be aware of energies in that project at work, or relationships between the boss and the team, whatever it is that you're engaged in. This is the state of munai. Munai. It is unconditional acceptance of what is so, as it is in the moment, with no agenda, no reactivity. And it puts us in a state that feels like love. It is love. Munai in Quechua means to love. But it's a universal love. It's not the other kind of love that we need, which is personal love, one human heart to another, one human heart to your favorite dog's heart. It's a universal love. It's a collective love. And it's the kind of love that rises when we are in full consciousness, both our relational minds and our linear minds working in concert. And it's the bridge to our future. It is the bridge to a better world. It's at the core of everything, the state of munai. And one of the things that we see in munai, as you begin to look at how everything is, you begin to see the energetics. We mentioned that, the energy of a relationship, the momentum in an activity or an idea. And you then have access to the next principle, which we've called aini, this beautiful Quechua word. It means reciprocity, but at a higher level of understanding, what it means is to bring the ingredients of, let's say, a project together, or to bring two people together for the sole purpose of creating something beautiful. Whether it's more money in your bank account, or corn in your field, or a project for your children's school, it doesn't matter. We are creating all the time in life. And aini teaches us how to bring the right mix of things together, so we not only get what we had in mind, but we get even more. The return to us and to our communities is at least twofold. It's hard to imagine that in the modern world, but this is how we're designed. We're supposed to be this way. So aini is the next principle. And this, of course, immediately creates the collective, or the Quechua word is ayu, the collective. It immediately connects people, and we realize that what community is a living organization, very flexible organization that is there because of the quality of our connections. Now, we have a way in the modern world of designing a blueprint. I have an idea for the organization of my company, and I'm going to stick people in these places that I have pre-designed. And then I'm going to make them make relationship with one another. And we've been living this way quite a long time. In particular, since the Industrial Revolution, we have designed a map and stuck people in it. And this goes against full consciousness. Our consciousness does not work this way. Nature doesn't work this way. This idea of pre-formed frameworks that we stick things in, is like putting square pegs in square holes and so on. It really has come to us as we developed this magical thing that we have. We call it linear awareness. We've been talking about this in the lessons. We have linear reflective awareness. It is unique to humans, and it does very special things. It's designed in part to house our ego structure, which gives us an identity. We're very complex beings, and we need a clear, stable identity that is adaptable to an ever-changing environment. We need to be able to get from point A to point B and back, because we live in an increasingly complex world, and we're actually part of that complexity. We add to it because we create. And it's also there to help us bond, to attach. All organisms need some degree of bonding, whether it's to the environment they live in or to one another. And the more complex the organism, the more important that bonding becomes. And we're about the most complex thing walking around. So bonding for us is very, very key to our health and happiness. But when we end up living simply in linear awareness, isolated, going from A to B to C, and we no longer have a connection to our relational awareness, we no longer see the connections that we actually have, we start to feel we're missing something. And we have no way but to preform an idea and try to flow people and energy into it. So what we're saying when we suggest that we come to full consciousness and we develop our relational awareness, we're saying that we actually have within us the capacity to keep on building this world. We're not doing that many things wrong. The only problem we really have, if you look at it through the lens of consciousness, is that we're sitting in one very small part of our conscious capacity. So to come back to the organizing principles for a minute, we've introduced a few of them. And the main ones I would say would be pacha and practicing or putting yourself in the now. It's a feeling state. And these other three principles that are inextricable from one another, unconditional acceptance, actually unconditional knowledge and perception of what is so, and then the knowledge of how to bring things together to really create what has the most power, and then the knowledge that those things actually are creating community right in front of your eyes, right around you. Those, I would say, are the starting point for modern culture. Now let's come back to the two kinds of awareness. We have relational awareness, which is what most of our brain is doing all the time, 24/7. As long as your heart's beating, you are collecting sensory data from your environment. That's how we live. That's how we know where we are. That's how we know where the yellow line down the middle of the highway is. That's how we know what that yellow line encodes. It's how we do everything. But for the most part in modern humans, all of those activities in our relational mind, that sensing, we're no longer aware of. It happens very, very fast. It's a tremendous amount of detail that we gather very easily. But we've become enamored of our reflective capacity. And why not? It's really extraordinary to realize, to be able to observe ourselves thinking, to be able to observe ourselves creating and coming up with ideas that have never surfaced in this world before. It's beautiful. But we've become so enamored with it that we're stuck in it. We've forgotten the great gift that we carry. These two are supposed to work in unison. And one of the biggest things that we need to do is to learn again how to feel. This is different from emotions. So we need to develop some emotional maturity along the way. And the happy news is that practicing the sensing exercises that we've given you in these lessons and practicing, even organizing yourself by the now, starts to develop that emotional maturity. So you can tell the difference between your emotions, which are important, and your pure sensing capacity. And once you can do this, you'll see that your reflective mind starts to do its real job, which is to help you see what you're creating, to help you see what has meaning for you. It's very important that we know ourselves what has meaning, not as a defense or pushing away, but so we can be clear. We need clear communications in the world today, and we need our creative capacity, and we need to be able to bring ideas together without competing in a way where we push things away. We have to bring things together in the world today. And we have the conscious capacity to do this. It's a world in which there are a lot of beautiful things happening. We can read Paul Hawken's book, Blessed Unrest, and find out about the over 2 million independent organizations that are working on behalf of society and the environment. It's happening. That's a beautiful example. It's the biggest one I can give you right now. But I would propose that we don't really perceive the good things that are happening because they're happening at a collective level, and we don't have collective perception as a general rule. Collective perception, relational awareness, these are two ways of saying the same thing. We need to wake up our sensing mind so we can see the possibility and the value that is actually rising up around us, and we can plug into it. It's a little bit like having pots of gold all around you and you can't see them because you're living like this. So this is one of the biggest reasons to do these practices, to learn these principles and play with them in your life. See what you learn by organizing your awareness with these principles. Now these are things that the individual can do. And the individual, you, make a difference. How you live and how you relate and your development of your consciousness, it makes a difference. You know, when you walk into a room, let's say you go to a party and you're in the room and one person comes in with extraordinary energy, beautiful energy. You know how long it takes for the whole room to shift? Less than a second usually. Maybe 3 seconds, but that's pretty fast. That's how important we are. That's how much difference we can make, each individual. So this is the kind of consciousness that is rising, we'll say, from the bottom up. You know, the elders in the indigenous cultures will tell us that consciousness is rising with or without us. And my proposal is that we jump on board and we go with it. So this is the bottom up rising of consciousness. But we're at edges in the world today. We are looking at running out of natural resources. We're looking at ice caps melting. We're looking at a lot of challenges between cultures. And my proposal also to all of you is that the people who are in positions of influence, people who lead companies, people who are in government, people who are heading up educational programs, if you are in a position of influence, it's even more important that you learn about consciousness, that you dive in and play with these principles, find out what happens to you, because this is experiential. But if you're in a position of influence, imagine that we take several government leaders around the United States alone, and we take several civic leaders around the United States alone, and we can take some educational leaders. We have a handful of people who have influence with other people, have connections, and we change their level of consciousness. We wake them up totally. Do you know how fast the change would be and how smooth it would be? It would be amazing. And my challenge to you, my request of you, I'll beg you to do this because this is my dream for all of the people on this planet. Play with these principles and find out how beautiful and happy and open and meaningful your life becomes. Thank you for listening to these programs. I hope you've enjoyed them.